meeting to order. All that stuff.
Okay, so
First, approved minutes from 10/21/19.
So moved. Second.
Any changes? I don't think it matters. I think I was the one who suggested the goal setting session, but I don't think it has Jessica, but we both have the same intention, so I'm good with that. But otherwise, I did the time. It was great, right? All those in favor? I'm gonna make a little change here. I'm gonna move a little segment on board issues up to this motion, and just let folks know that we had a goal setting session last week. Just with the school board, the public was welcome, nobody else came, but it was a 2-hour meeting that we held, and we all got to get together. I thought it was an exceptional meeting, and set our goals moving forward, and just get more in the rhythm of moving forward with where we want some of our projects to go in our committees, and how we want to structure things. And then we'll revisit again with another goal session probably in May sometime. So we have some goals on here. We would like action items to be set at each meeting, so we're going to work on that. And we're going to keep the meeting to an hour is what we're going to try, as well as that.
So the hour bit, first of all, good luck.
We're going to try.
And secondly, I don't ever recall that agreeing that that's what we're going to do.
It was just a brainstorming
It was
session.
just a brainstorming session, but I'd like to try.
So, but,
We don't need to go for 3 hours. I mean, like a goal to be 3 hours.
so what I'm wondering is if, so we're an hour into it and we have business still to do, we just adjourn the meeting.
No.
We need to penalize ourselves.
No, I mean, we're gonna try and be more succinct.
So here's me like making sure that we're not going to get,
I know.
now we're arguing the point about the hour.
Let's give it a
I
try.
mean, there's some irony there, but I mean, like, so years ago, we said we were going to try to do an hour and a half. We never did that. I mean, an hour is kind of, I mean, we have a lot of business to conduct anyway. We've had maybe 1 or 2 meetings the entire time I've been a board member inside of an hour.
Oh, no, I've had many that we were an hour with Carl.
It was snowy.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
many. It was rare that we went over an hour.
It was
Over an
snowy.
hour. Carl was an hour and a half back. He was never
No,
an hour.
an hour.
I don't know what board you were on,
Yeah.
but I was never on a board where we had very many meetings inside an hour. You know.
Well, let's give it a try. All right. We'll just be more succinct. All right.
Maybe that
Presentation
goal
of
should have been, let's
school.
not have 2-hour meetings. Instead of let's keep it
Well,
to an
let's
hour, let's not have 2-hour meetings.
Presentation of school programs, FYI items.
Jensen, want to use this?
No, we're gonna move down.
Oh, we're moving down.
They're gonna be at the bottom
Oh,
again.
okay, got it.
Well,
We can, I guess,
I'm not saying we can't, I'm just saying I don't think it's a good idea.
well, we only really need to ask it once.
Okay.
It's probably keeping the meeting to an hour.
I don't agree with that. I think that we should have citizen comments right up top where we usually do because.
Then you wanna remove this one?
What?
Then you wanna move this one?
Well, so the purpose of both of those things, one was to kind of give people a say at the beginning of the meeting, let some kind of air what they're trying, what they might be here for. The reason why we have it at the end of the meeting is because if there's something that happened during the meeting that they wanted to comment on, is usually what the second one was for.
But I feel, true. And we could do that.
So, but I guess what I'm getting at here
succinct.
is if we're talking about changing up the agenda, I didn't know that was a goal at our goal setting meeting. We haven't had any discussion about that. And if we want to, I think we should have a discussion about what our agenda should be. I don't think that we should kind of just pull it out of a goal setting meeting where I didn't know the goal was to actually change the agenda.
Well, some of it was one of them was to add accountability. That was what we all agreed on, was we wanted some accountability. And we all wanted to come to the meeting here and not have a work session in our board meetings, but have a meeting that followed up with what our subcommittees were so that we could move things along, is what we were trying to do. So it's a change, so I'm trying to implement some change. There's going to be a little bump here and there, like, to what we agree on. I'm not saying that this is the way it's going to be. I'm just trying
Well, actually,
to get a little
you are
traction
saying
with what we did.
So I guess what I'm questioning is, are we changing the agenda or not? And if we
Well,
are,
we can't change the agenda totally tonight.
we're talking about changing the agenda tonight.
Well, I just have a question. Is it your job to set the agenda? It's her job, and you're with you?
Yeah, typically,
Yeah.
as I was saying before, the agenda format is agreed upon by the board.
Okay.
In most of the time, it's into your policy. And in order to change the agenda, you would go back to policy and then make a recommendation to the full board. So if you wanted to have, I don't know, a student presentation on the agenda, you could do that. If you wanted an official spot on there. But you should have an agreed upon agenda. Now,
The headings in
the
general.
chair, in myself and Gail, will typically, if there are issues that we have, we can address those throughout. Typically, we'll go back and forth, because Gail has more of a pulse on what's happening right here. And that goes out a week or two in
Right.
advance.
Yeah.
And if there's something specific, we'll put that, like the Title I grant presentation.
And I know even we can approach you guys and put this on the agenda, so it seems fairly,
I think what you're talking about, if I might,
Yeah, good.
is efficiency at the meetings. And I will tell you that one piece from an outsider's piece would be the committee work that's done outside of these meetings, to maybe formalize that work so that when you're here, like the policies, there was a lot of work that was done on personnel and policies outside of here. And then the other board members get to see that in advance so that they're prepared. But really, that committee work has those recommendations that people don't have to agree with that. You might send it back to the committee, but that may tidy up a little bit and become a little bit more efficient on some of these pieces.
yeah, I mean,
Which
one
is
of the,
okay.
one of the things we talked about was making those committees more effective so that we're here to make decisions on a night like tonight. But I've never even heard of the policy on setting the agenda, so maybe tonight you can keep it the way it is, but set it to the
Right,
policy.
it's pretty much keeping the way it is. I just skipped citizen comments because we were gonna get it here, but it's exactly the same order
And
as it is.
it's my experience with this board that people can chime in. as-
Pretty much any
so-
time, which is also something that we may want to review.
Okay.
So, I mean, I want community involvement, but sometimes that,
So would you- if you're
It's
interested in looking at the
exasperating.
agenda and changing it, because if so, maybe we could kick it to the policy committee to review that.
yeah, why don't we do that?
Okay.
So with that, we'll stick with the same, because the new one's the same, but just I'm trying to meld them a little bit together with some of the stuff we took away from our goal setting session. And it's gonna be a process a little bit.
Well, if we're gonna make it a process, why don't we really make it a process? I guess I'm
No, I meant
confused.
it's just gonna be an exercise in a little bit of, like, the committees and making sure we're all set to come to the meeting to discuss things, instead of discussing them at the meeting, the subcommittee stuff. That's what I meant. I didn't mean to use the wrong word. Citizen comments?
I just want to piggyback on what Jerry said. I like the way it's set up, that you can comment in the beginning, and you can also comment in the end, because if something, like Jerry said, if something comes up in the middle of the meeting, you would have an opportunity to comment on that. So I'm not asking you guys to be here for hours or anything like that, but I think it's a good opportunity to have two places where you can comment as a citizen. That's all.
And I do want to recognize that most times, we don't hold people to that.
That's right. Yeah.
So maybe we could start doing that too.
Yeah,
Usually when we're on a topic, somebody can comment in
right.
at any time, so
Yeah.
that's part of it too.
Thank you.
Thank you. Title I grant presentation?
Passing down a very brief kind of synopsis.
Yeah, that was,
There's a lot of federal law that goes along with Title I, but basically Title I is a federal grant that spreads federal money to schools based on their free and reduced lunch or their poverty levels to support student learning and help bring achievement levels up to par with the state standards, even though it is a federal grant. So for the first time since I've been here, we were allocated $11,800 for a Title I grant.
Really?
Yes. And so that came across my desk in July or August, when of course we'd already set our staffing and our budget for other things. So I briefly checked in with the staff and did a quick kind of, where are some needs, where are some holes, where could we fill some student needs to better our achievement, and what areas would you focus on? We have a lot of help in reading, but we felt like math and writing were areas where we struggled, particularly writing on the state testing. Writing is not below state average, but it is comparatively lower than other achievement scores. So another need was to have a maybe before school program to do some tutoring outside of our, it's not special education, it's just practicing your math facts, practicing mechanics, things like that. So what we proposed and what was approved by the state of New Hampshire was to hire a teacher for an hour before school and have kids be able to come before school to get some specific tutoring in their area of need. We have a eligibility form, which needs to be filled out with test scores, teacher recommendation, that kinds of things. And we start by selecting the lowest achieving students and then work our way up until we're at a cap.
Will we have to provide morning transportation?
No.
No.
And are the kids that are who would take advantage of this program able to get here for that time?
If they can, that's just one facet of the grant. The other portion would be an additional assistant, paraprofessional, that would work within our school day, so we could catch kids there as well.
That's awesome.
So, and again, it's limited to this fiscal year at the moment. We don't know whether or not we will be approved to continue to get Title I funds, so it's not something that we here can count on, because we don't have a large number of low socioeconomic families, and it varies quite a bit.
That's
in
great.
the district, so.
Wow.
So with the current teacher, whatever current teacher that's been assigned, would they already certified, or do they have to go and get certified?
I would want to hire someone who was already certified, preferably someone who's already on the staff.
On our staff?
Yes.
Oh, okay, I'm just wondering, because we have such a difficult time getting someone in for 1 hour, 5 days a week, where are we getting that person?
Right.
So, okay.
And if not, our staff, maybe from Bartlett or someone locally that would have that time, because we do start a little earlier than the other elementary schools.
So this is approved, that would be the next step for you guys, is to find that person?
Yes.
Okay.
So before I advertise, I want to notify all of you that we have gotten this grant money, and I will be looking for some people to fill this role.
That's great. And we'll vote on that when we get to 7B and C.
Okay.
I have a question if you're still on it. And so how do we handle that, like as far as our current budget? So obviously a line item's gonna go over, right?
It's not in our current budget at all. It's a completely separate grant budget that's maintained by Christine Thompson down at the SAU, and that pot of money is completely separate from.
We don't need to vote to accept the money or anything, but that's kind of what we're doing in the policy.
So one of the things that you'll see is outside of your operating budget, you'll see grants. And
Yeah.
then it's offset by the revenue from the grants. So
Okay.
it's kind of a pass-through, but it is all in the budget.
Because there were strict regulations about how it's used and what it's used for, and how you identify the
You
students.
can't mingle it with your regular funds.
Or use it for anything that you currently have as a program. I can't say, oh, well, I'm going to use Title I now to pay for the second aid that we already have.
Yeah, it has to be new.
Because that's supplanting what you have.
If we don't use the money, do we lose it, or does it roll over?
It will roll over as long as you're approved again. So, your census, it's impacted by your census each year.
But it sounds like we needed it anyway, so it would probably get utilized.
For hoping, yeah.
Okay.
As long as we can find someone.
Well, yes, for 1 hour extensions.
I've got a question about the timing. Most other schools already have it, before the school year starts. I understand this is the first time we've ever gotten it. Is that why we're seeing it this time of year? So
Yes.
we'll be able to plan for it a little bit better.
Right, we didn't get our application in until September, and then had to wait for a state approval process.
Most of the time you'll get notification if you qualify in June, preliminary numbers, and then you'll get more in July, exact dollars.
I think it's great. All right, old business, we still have early childhood ed update on the agenda. I know we don't necessarily have anything specific for that at this time that I know of, correct, for an update?
I think the only thing is that this was going to get kicked to the facilities committee, not
Right.
necessarily, but we don't have a facilities committee thing here, and there's no place on the agenda for it, so I don't know if this is the time to
Yeah,
do
then
that or
we'll
what
ask
you want
about
to
it
do.
now, yeah. So we'll parlay into the facilities
So-
question that we had last time.
The facilities committee hasn't met yet to discuss that. The only thing I would comment that's a little bit ironic about that is that the rest of the board didn't want to use the rooms as a part of the early childhood education. So it's kind of obvious to put that, but with that, I mean, the taxes went up. I don't know if people got their tax bills or saw that our taxes went up. And the select board's going to be looking at trying to reduce their budget. We're thinking about adding a position. Kind of my thoughts on the basement room for this year, that, you know, maybe we shouldn't be adding $50,000-$60,000 to the budget where taxes are at already. And one of the things that we talked about at the goal setting thing was that we need to take a look at our campus and identify available space and need for space. It's kind of what he said the first time I brought it up. It's like, well, is it something that the school's asking for? We really don't know because we haven't put it through a process. So what I would suggest is that for, you know, the next board in the spring, one of our goals should be, let's try to identify, or just have a process for identifying what space we need and what space we actually have. If that makes sense to people.
In the school,
What?
in the school or in the town?
It could be both, and it could be part of what we're talking about, working more with selectmen too, to discuss things like, okay, how's this going to impact the budget and impact taxes? It might be kind of that broader scope of things, but, you know, rather than saying we should put $50,000 in to rebuild the basement, maybe the first thing that we should do is analyze the space that we have. Does it meet our needs? What more needs do we need? And then if we need more space, where can we find it? Going through that steps rather than just kind of.
I thought, maybe I missed it, but I thought we were just gonna figure out the cost of like utilizing the basement and the upstairs, just so we had a figure, not necessarily moving forward with any, doing anything. Right, but I thought we all agreed we were gonna get just an updated on how much it would cost. That didn't mean we were gonna
Right.
do it, but we wanted an updated cost as to, and that's why we were gonna meet with Jim and the facilities committee, just to get a cost, and then we could figure out, based on the cost, then it would parlay to the next ideas, which would be meeting with Gail to figure out the issues of the school, and maybe working with the town, but I thought that was pretty much our
You didn't think of it,
agreement.
it's, the facilities committee is tasked with bringing basement information to the next meeting. Go down to the last sentence. Mr. Richard recommends having a facilities meeting, including Jim Hill, and have that committee make a recommendation to the board. So I think we did vote to kick it to committee, so we can change that at this meeting, but.
Right, but I thought we were just finding out, like, updated costs and what was needed for the basement and the second floor. Not what we were gonna do it, but what the cost gonna be, so that we could actually have real information, updated information.
Right, what I'm saying is the facility committee hasn't met yet, so.
Okay. So we.
Is that something
for the
that
next
you
meeting.
could maybe have Jim reach out to us and try to set something up?
Sure. Yeah.
And then the family.
We did, I have one more comment on
Yeah, go
what
ahead.
Jerry said too, though, and we mentioned this to Jim, is, what's the best way to put this? We need to be careful we don't spend any money on it, because we already have figures, but nobody likes the figures we already have. So we're gonna do this again, and then we don't do anything this year, 2 years from now, we say, let's go look at how much it's gonna cost us to do it upstairs and downstairs again. So that's the only thing I would caution. about. And the more we talk about the upstairs and the downstairs, the more uproar you're gonna have from the community on spending money, and they're gonna say, for what? What are we doing? Why are we spending money there?
Okay,
Does
so-
Jim have copies of those figures that you keep referring to? We've got the figures. Do we know where that information is, or have we seen it? 'Cause maybe that we can bring that.
The upstairs was almost 10 years ago, so
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
not
that's
sure.
what I mean.
Yeah,
If we've
And
got
different
numbers, they've got to be
requirements,
recorded
too.
somewhere or planned
in
somewhere.
minutes, maybe.
I mean, it probably would help to just put this back into context, which was that it came up in the discussion over whether to keep the early childhood business on the agenda. And the argument was that we should look at our space, whether we use it for preschool or not, and that's what we were gonna do. Now, it
Right.
might have changed with the planning, because I do agree with you, I think we did came up with the idea, we should look at everything, but maybe that starts with the facilities committee going to Jim and saying, we need updated numbers on these things, and also, how do we have, I mean, just as one board member who's not on the committee, I'd love for you to come back and say, this is really how we should do it. We want to look at our whole campus, we start, do this first, and then this, but we have to do it all at the same place, because I don't think any of us really know exactly how to meet the goals that we have started to talk about.
Right.
And I'm thinking if there was a formal study done, it should be on file somewhere. But
Right. And I'm sure there's
But it
codes
included like
that,
elevator costs and all that back then. I
what,
can't
yeah,
remember.
some
much
10 years ago. Well,
It was more than 10 years ago.
And when the original
I've been
preschool
here
committee-
12, and
Because
it was before me.
No, because I've
Okay.
been on the board for 12.
all right, we're gonna move on.
Yeah.
We're gonna have that meeting and see if Jim has that information. So, and then we'll be able to utilize that too.
And we'll meet again and at least talk about that, but again, like, you know, what I caution about too, you know, we need to have a purpose and what it's gonna be used for if we decide anything. Like, when you build a house, maybe you didn't finish above the garage because you didn't have the money right now, and you didn't have a use for it. And in a few years, now you have the money and you have a use for it.
Well, let's see, we wanna make it usable space, like, that people can actually
Well, I
get to.
disagree with that. We want to find a cost, but I don't think, I have a feeling that we're going to be against whatever the cost is because we don't have a reason to use it. So, yeah, we can get some numbers, but I think we'll go through the same thing in a few years from now.
All right, B, the family support liaison position.
Okay, I'll pass
You have
along.
a draft?
I have requested, redrafted.
Oh, I thought you sent that, all right.
Gail, did this go to policy already?
Oh, it's supposed to be front and back.
Sorry,
Yeah,
they
yeah,
are,
okay.
yours,
This is-
the
I'm
rest.
sorry, did this go to policy yet?
No.
'Cause I thought the next step after our personnel meeting was it was going
To
to
go
policy
back to
Right.
personnel, right, policy.
before it came to the board,
Yeah.
but it's coming to the board now, but it hasn't been policy.
It hasn't gone to policy.
That's true, it should go back to,
Okay.
I guess.
I apologize, I saw it on the agenda, and I thought that, I know.
I'm glad you took the initiative, I just want to be clear about the process.
So now you have time to think about it.
All right, so this does need to go back to the policies
Yep.
committee first, before we can recommend it to the board.
And I just had a question on our last personnel meeting. I know the first meeting, the previous meeting we got minutes from. Are there minutes from that last one? From
The
11/1?
personnel,
Yeah,
Yeah.
do you know?
did I share those out with you?
I didn't see them.
Okay, then it could be on my computer.
Yeah, I didn't
And,
see them either.
I may not have included those with this pack.
And that's also something I think we're doing more of, so.
Yeah, no, I tried to.
It's just a small question, is that title, like a common industry title people are using now, or should we be calling it a guidance counselor?
It's a school counselor is the official.
Oh, not Jackson
Yeah, for-
Family Advocate, so
The
it would be. it
family
would just be-
advocate was exclusive to us because it's not the same as the family liaison positions that are in some of the other schools. There's
But
additional
technically, when it
responsibility.
goes in, it'll just be a school counselor, will be their official
No, it'll be
title.
both.
No?
Yeah. Well, the policy can figure that out.
No, I was just asking, is that an industry term that people use, family advocate, like, for the school, that's all I was asking.
It doesn't carry a certification. School counselor carries
Yeah.
a certification. Family advocate does not.
Tuition contracts?
I have a question on that. Does our, I can't remember this, hopefully Kevin or Jerry might know the answer. Does our bond payments end before the tuition contract? For some reason I thought the bond payments,
Maybe a year.
it's only a year, for some reason I thought it was several years.
I'll check on that, but I think it's a year maybe, because you paid. No, because the first year you only pay the interest. I think they do
The whole
Aspire with
Yeah.
the whole thing.
For some reason I thought, maybe it's just that it keeps going down. And that's what I
I
had.
think it's reference to the upcoming one, not the one with Bartlett or anything. Right?
Oh, you mean, so it's just like the high school?
Yeah, I think
Oh, then it needs to change the title of it. Because I don't know if it's, I'm thinking it's our personal
That's what I
tuition
thought.
contract for Jackson Grammar School. Okay. So this is actually the high school. Okay. I think we don't have any updates on that, but, I know we wanted to start with that. Do we wanted to start a subcommittee on that? And I don't know if we,
I think we decided
Solidify that?
before that the spring was a better time for that, because it's not, I thought that's what we had talked about.
I mean, I don't
Okay.
think anything will happen
Right,
before
isn't that the
December, but it would be
timeline?
helpful to get it, start to get it organized.
Wasn't there a timeline that it was recommended? You guys gave us a timeline, form committees, and I think that was like April 2020. There was a whole timeline, I think you brought it to the meeting.
Yeah, I mean, I think what
What did
we
you
were
say,
looking at
Kevin?
was, in the spring, we'd have Kevin come and start to talk to the community.
Right, at the SAU 9 board meeting
Right.
last Thursday night, I said that we would do, much like we did with the study committee of the current tuition contract, do a study committee on cooperative agreements and what those would look like. In that, I did say probably February or March, would be for the big group to, or anybody who's interested, to understand a whole lot more about what a cooperative district is. Other districts are kind of having subcommittees to explore different pieces, but we at the SAU will be putting together a timeline, much like we did probably February to June, once a month or something, putting together a series of speakers and information.
I thought I saw somewhere there was a timeline that came to this meeting that had like the next few years on when we
Yeah.
should be
Oh,
doing
yeah.
this, when we should be doing that.
Right. So the first thing you have to do is study. And then if you're going to go down that road, then you formalize that cooperative study committee with representatives from different boards. And that takes about a year or so to get that.
Well, for our purposes, we were looking at putting together a committee, I think, to, again, to do this study of what are our options, what are things gonna look like, and that's gonna take a significant amount of time, and I think we talked initially about starting to inform the public, even just the lingo that we're using, and to kind of get them up to speed. I think I was hoping for 15 meetings with you, and we're like, we'll do one, but, just because they're.
Well, I could do what I did with Bartlett too. We started half an hour early, and I walked through with the general public, the board, what the current tuition agreement is and all the different variables that go with that. So if that's something that you would like to do, I have no problem.
I'd like to do that.
I mean, I think it would be helpful to start to get it on our agenda and in the minutes so that folks know that that will happen. And if we could do something like that.
Do you want that on your December agenda? That's up to you.
I think
Maybe start
January.
We'll do that.
And maybe make sure that we add it to the agenda and not just leave it on there.
Well, it would be separate in the beginning.
Make it technically
Yeah,
different
that's
parts,
what I'm saying,
yeah,
we
doesn't
add it.
impact our
Oh,
time
it
of
would
our
be,
actual
it'd be the
meeting.
5:30, trust me.
Because we don't want it to impact our 1 hour, so
Yeah.
that's separate.
And then for the next time when we do the agenda, just instead write high school
Yeah.
tuition contract and then write January meeting. Okay, instructional issues, first reading of policies. We don't do these all at once, we're gonna do them separate, or? 'Cause we have
Is everybody,
just read them.
is
Maybe just read
everybody
them.
prepared to approve them tonight?
This is the first reading.
I've got some, I want to have some discussion about that.
So what you could do,
Yes.
Jen, is you could take a motion to open them all up and then vote on them individually,
All right,
if somebody wants to.
so motion to open all of the first policy readings for discussion.
So,
Okay. So the first one, thank you. Second one, DAF, Administration of Federal Grant Funds.
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Second, discussion.
This looks like it's cut and pasted from the CFR.
This is exactly what it
Okay.
is federal assurances. They're pretty boilerplate.
Yeah.
law requirements. As Gail was speaking about Title I grants, there's some what are called targeted schools, and then others are school-wide schools. So when they come in, they want to make sure you have all these policies in place.
And Kevin, just out of curiosity, who is tasked with complying with this in
Our
your
office,
office?
yeah.
Do you have a specific person? or-
Well, ultimately, it's me.
Well, yeah.
But there are different pieces. So, you know, your money is not that big, but in other places that you're getting, like IDEA,
Right.
right? And Conway, that's hundreds of thousands of dollars for Title I. So we need to make sure if we have a contract going out for $100,000, we don't just say, well, let's hire, Molly Dellavella for, $100,000. We go out and do RFPs and all that stuff, and make sure all the audits land where they are supposed to.
Okay, the next one.
All those in favor?
Is that
Oh.
approved?
Thank you.
Jackie.
Alright. JECA, change of school or assignment, manifest educational hardship.
Make a motion to approve by first reading.
Second?
All those in favor?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Paragraph C on the last page, it refers to Bartlett School District as the receiving district. Is that a typo, or can you
By the
explain it to
Bartlett
me?
School District, we're okay with that.
School in another district. Oh, yeah, that is.
I'm good.
You should have left it.
Check that.
I withdraw my
Jessica?
motion. I make a motion to approve on first reading with the change,
Thank you.
where is it? Section
This is
what?
section, paragraph C,
Paragraph C,
Paragraph C.
from Bartlett to Heinz Jackson.
Bartlett check, District Jackson.
As amended. All right, all those in favor? Okay, second? No, where are we? We were in discussion.
We had a motion on the table that we didn't act on.
I withdrew it.
You did?
Does somebody have to approve it? Did I withdraw it?
What?
Does
I
somebody
just
have
had
to
to
approve
I
that
said
withdrawal?
so I had to second the,
Approval, withdrawal.
Withdraw.
yeah,
So now we have to re-motion.
yeah.
So Jerry, that I did re-motion, but we just didn't accept we didn't get a second on my withdrawal.
Oh, okay, it's a second.
I did.
Got it.
Sorry.
So now we re-motion. So we're good to go with second motion
As amended?
as amended?
That is better,
And
yeah.
we're gonna approve. All those in favor? All right, next one, JFABD, admission of homeless students. Motion?
I make a motion to approve in first reading.
Second?
Discussion?
I just have just two questions. So, the second page, there's a paragraph that begins additionally after the numbers, and then a note. It references a policy, JFABE, with 2 asterisks. What policy is that they're relying on? If you can just direct me to it, you know?
Let me just, page 2.
Yeah, page 2, so you have all the numbers 1 through 7, then additionally, and then asterisk note at the end of that paragraph. It's see also policy.
Yeah. I'll have to check that. Sometimes there are multiple policies related to that, and I'll see if we have that as well.
And I understand the policy, just in practice, am I correct? So if a student starts in our school, then moves, we would be at the principal's discretion with the superintendent and the parents or caregivers to determine whether to move that child or to keep them for the entire year? If their parents move out of the district?
Homeless, not if they move, if they lose their housing.
Okay. So if they're homeless when they start, oh, okay, but they're if they become homeless, got it, okay.
So if somebody shows up on your doorstep and
Yeah.
says, we're homeless,
Right,
then you take them in, we take them
It
in.
doesn't go back to their previous town where they had
Doesn't matter.
They're
established?
homeless, they're homeless, yeah.
So there's no proof?
No,
No.
it is, no, I mean, it's, yeah.
So a Bartlett student living in somebody else's house could decide they don't like their teacher and come down here and say I'm homeless?
No, there's a whole regulation on homeless, the definitions and stuff.
Well, yeah, that's what, one of the definitions was said. That's why I said that. That was one of the definitions.
But they wouldn't be living in Bartlett if they were homeless.
Yeah, I'm living, I don't have a place to live, I'm couch surfing, the school year started, my kid's starting in Bartlett, I'm sleeping on my friend's couch with my kid.
Wherever they show up on your doorstep. Yeah.
Okay. And then if they, so they're homeless, and then they find a home, but in another town, a different, let's say Kent, Conway, down far,
Yeah.
then what happens with them then? We would keep them for that year, or is it at the
So-
discretion of the,
Depends on.
Yeah, depends on the situation too. So
so
if
it's case
it's,
by case?
you know, sometimes I'll get requests from people in April and they're in 6th grade and they say, boy, I'd really like to finish this 6th grade year, or we're moving in, you know, September, but we don't have is it okay if we start kindergarten there? And then we'll put a timeline and communicate back and forth. We try to work with what's in the best interest.
So ultimately, I think the board votes on that, right?
Yeah, sometimes. Not if it's real short term.
I always had to go from the board for that, so.
And there's
For longer
different
term.
types of housing.
April,
They're with
April to finish the school year.
relatives, or if it's a transitional housing, or a motel, or an inn, or seasonal
Okay.
rental, or something that's short-term campground. There's any number of housing options. They're still considered homeless until they have a signed lease
Okay.
and
Something
their financial situation is, so that you know that they're going to be securely housed.
And who's our staff member that's the local liaison?
It's Vicki Hill, but she's no longer our employee, so for now it's me.
Got it.
Right, but it would be, it's on the job description for.
Guidance.
So with that in mind, do you want to wait until you,
Let's send it
until
back
we see?
and then we'll address this
Yeah,
for second reading.
okay.
Unless you're good with it.
I don't think it's going to alter the actual policy, I just want to be, understand what we were relying on, so.
So are you okay to motion
Yeah.
to move on?
I
Okay.
withdraw my motion.
Yeah, you can,
Oh, I'm
I
saying,
already made the motion. You said you didn't want to vote.
no, I'm saying I won't.
Oh,
she
yeah.
said,
Oh, okay.
she's fine, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So put it back in.
Well,
Back in.
just ignore that I said it.
Make
All those in
it
favor
look
of
good,
this?
Melissa.
Still there.
Okay, all those in favor? Thank you. Personnel policies for contracted employees, personal leave, and salary schedule for hiring for 2021.
I make a motion to approve this first reading.
Second.
Is this one we discussion?
Yeah, what's the change from our current year on this? Is this just added? I don't,
Yeah, there was a practice that had been put into place, but it was never implemented.
Right.
So
That's right.
after May 31st, what happens?
I get the May 31st part. I guess is the top part of this what it currently reads? Like that's currently what our,
That's correct, yeah. The
Yeah.
bold is the new language.
and the bold's a new language. Okay.
Yeah.
I guess we should take out the word teaching principal from the non-bold
Yeah.
anyway, and just put in principal. So that's a change.
Wait, so we're striking all of paragraph C?
No,
Oh, okay, got
We're adding.
Just striking the word
Got it, okay.
teaching from
it,
the
got it, okay.
5th or 6th sentence in there. I guess what I question about what the current policy already is, personal leave shall not be allowable or used for such purposes or as social affairs, pleasure trips, and matters of a similar nature. Has that always been the case? So if you wanted to take a vacation and use a personal day, you couldn't do it?
correct.
That's always been the policy?
Yeah, they're on vacation days for business that you can't do under any other time.
I wasn't aware of that. Is
This is
this,
personal leave, like, again.
it's a personal day, right? You're talking about
Right.
personal days that are granted. So like if you were, and this is a policy across the district, probably?
Every collective bargaining agreement, you shouldn't be out skiing on a day that you're,
Well, I'm not talking about skiing necessarily, but I know lots of people that use these as to, if they're going on a trip, like take
You must request permission from the superintendent and the principal, and it's extenuating, I think it's spelled out here if it's,
Yeah.
So it does,
you know, an
okay.
extenuating, you have a big
Right, okay.
family
That I
wedding,
get,
a once
yeah.
in a lifetime reunion, you know, things like that, the superintendent will approve. But-
And that doesn't limit
No.
either to that specific thing, so
Yeah.
it's,
If
okay.
it's a once-in-a-lifetime event, that's what I'd consider extenuating circumstances. Somebody's 40th wedding anniversary that they're going to.
I was just misreading it then, because I thought that the extenuating circumstances thing was just for after May 31st. I didn't realize that it could be applied to
Yeah.
any time that the request is there. Because in the first part, it's just up to the principal kind of agreeing for that to happen.
So this is kind of, so you see, I think your point is personally request immediately before or after a holiday goes up to.
Yeah, that bumps
No,
up to.
that one I have no
Yeah,
problem with
okay.
either. That makes sense to me. And the May 31st one, it makes sense to me. I just didn't ever realize that it was, I guess what I'd like is that if there's a way to get some language in the top part saying that when it's before, not around a holiday, and it's not around, not after May 31st, if the extenuating circumstances can be applied to the top, because it doesn't seem like it can be.
No, I see what you're saying.
Oh, so any other time of the year you want these to apply as well? Like this part to me leaves it up to the principal, the top part.
Right, if it's not before or
And
after a
then-
holiday or after May 31st, it's at
Right.
the principal's
It's up to
discretion.
the principal's
Otherwise, it gets bumped to
discretion.
you so that you can monitor abuse.
Right. So I'm okay with it the way it says. It's up to Gail the rest of the time of year to work with whoever's requesting it, and say yes or no. So this part, it's like if 3 teachers want to take off, you know.
Like I said,
the
I
last week of
get,
school,
I get the
but-
May 31st part, I get the holiday part for those very reasons. I just think that the way the language is and see that the current language that we have for it is pretty limiting in what they can take personal days for. And it doesn't seem to allow for any variation on that, whereas the conditions on around the holiday and after May 31st, there is some discretion there. I don't see any discretion in the main part of the policy.
Well, it does say intended to indicate that conducting a business or personal affairs which cannot be accomplished within reasonable planning at any other time.
So you're saying this is more flexible down here?
Yeah, I mean, to me, weddings, college orientation, graduation, those are social affairs. And this policy is saying you can't do it, but you can after May 31st, and you can around a holiday if there's extenuating circumstances. And maybe I'm just overthinking this, and that's fine, I mean, but.
These are separate from vacation days?
The teachers work 187-day contract, that's it.
Our vacations.
They get paid time off
February.
for 3 personal days a year, and then they get their sick time. And then there's bereavement time as well.
Oh, these are paid days too, I forgot
Yeah.
about that, I thought that they were just, I thought they
Or
lost
FMLA
that.
as well, right?
Yeah.
It's personal,
that's-
So,
I'm overthinking it.
So we're good? Okay. Well, good question. No, I think, all right, I'm okay with it. I mean, we haven't had any issues with it in the past.
Well, that's just it.
Principles.
My problems were, that's why I wanted the clarification, which was the current policy versus what's being added. I get the holiday and the May 31st thing,
Yeah,
because I'm overthinking the top part. I'll stop doing that.
okay. All right, we're good. So all those in favor?
Make a motion to accept this first reading,
Second.
personnel policies for contracted employees.
We
Second.
did that, yeah.
We do that already?
Yeah, we're at the all
You can do,
approved.
you can do contract and non-contract in the same one if you want to.
Okay.
Maybe that's what we're all thinking.
I did have a question about the non-contracted. Sorry,
Okay.
just,
No, that's fine.
there's this extra sentence, full-time year-round employees shall be exempt from May 31st restriction with approval of the principal. Are there no contracted personnel that have that same caveat?
Nope.
Okay,
No. You have, what, 1 year-round employee?
John, yeah.
oh, okay,
So you hate to, year-round employee, if
right.
you can
Oh, I
schedule
just
it for
didn't
him.
realize, I guess the contracts are, they have off in the summers, so there's no teacher, I feel like some teachers work over the summer, but no.
They
Those
do.
are just
They do
trainings.
They
Well,
are-
that's
Got it.
separate stuff.
Okay,
Separate,
got it.
not part of
Okay.
their
I'm good then.
original job
We
description.
approved that in June.
Separate. Okay.
Okay. So we're good with the personnel policies for non-contracted employees? personnel
Does
use.
anybody have any questions about the hiring schedule?
Oh,
Sorry.
sorry. I skipped that.
That was just an update.
Oh, I'm good.
No, we looked
We
at this.
discussed this before, so
Yeah.
we're good with this? approving it.
Was this changed?
Yes.
Yeah, it was updated, the bachelor's, the step one, that drives everything else.
Yeah.
So,
You just change that one block and everything else changes on your
Mhm.
cheat.
gotcha, it's like magic. Magic.
Okay. We don't need to vote on that, right?
It's part of the policy.
It's part of the policies, just, yeah.
We voted on it when we did it, right?
We did it, right, yeah. I would say personnel policies for non-contract.
Well, we didn't actually vote on them before yet.
We didn't?
No, because then we said we could do them together, then we kind of stopped voting.
No, I voted to separate them, and then we voted on each one separately.
Oh, okay, I didn't raise my hand on them.
Okay. She got you in already.
Alright.
So now we're on, are we on personnel policies for non-contract
Yeah.
employees?
Yeah. I
Okay.
make a motion to accept at first reading the personal policies for non-contracted employees.
Second.
Everybody in favor? Yay, okay, moving on. Okay. Consider personnel action. No, we're on. So, hold on. All right, election of Neil Stokes for ESSE coordinator.
So moved.
Second.
My discussion would be, I want to find out what the other elementary people are doing, and I already asked Kevin for that before the meeting, but and other than that, all in favor? Okay. Establish position of part-time Title I teacher based on our previous discussion earlier this evening.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Awesome. That was me too. Establish position of part-time teacher, part-time Title aide. For our conversation earlier.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Okay, budget status report. Any questions, concerns, Keith? You lose like a-
Yeah, it's early in the year.
Doing okay.
Doing okay? Superintendent?
Yeah, just a couple of quick things. One is the strategic plan kickoff event will be on December 11th at 6 p.m. at the Lloyd Auditorium. Jen has been sitting in on those meetings, and we have a guest speaker coming in, and there'll be some surveys, but that will be the kickoff event, and it'll be kind of publicized moving forward. Come one, come all. We have a budget meeting for Jackson on the 22nd at 9:30 a.m. at the SAU office. And the other piece is, I don't know if your board has, you get the New Hampshire School Board Association, flyers and all that stuff, but do you have a delegate for the New Hampshire School Board Association? There are resolutions out there.
I think on our list it says has needed.
So if anybody had, took a look, feel free to, send me that and put it on the board agenda if people have a feeling about the resolutions. And you can always send things down to them. There are about 8, I think, resolutions out there. And other than that, no, we've been kind of cranking away on the budgets. That's been our.
I have a comment on the budget. I don't know if I should save it for board member issues or if I don't know the appropriate time with that.
For board member. Principal?
I'm going to save it, okay. Currently, we're doing parent-teacher conferences and goal-setting sessions with the older students as we have in the past, and those are going along very well. The other thing on Thursday morning, we are doing something a little bit different with our Thanksgiving. We've often done a Tuesday before Thanksgiving presentation by the children. We are changing that to the Thursday before Thanksgiving, so it will be at our all-school meeting on Thursday morning, where our 4th through 6th grade students will be presenting the research for the Mayflower, which was the topic for the DAR essay this year. So you're invited to come and join us and see some of the research and essays that sixth graders, fifth and sixth graders have written.
Thank you. All right, anything else? No? Okay. Public?
I have nothing.
All right, Dave.
You can't just make something up.
Yeah, I'll do that.
We've got a few minutes.
Board member issues, Keith, what was your question?
My question was, I thought we talked about this. Internet? I think I asked you to go ahead and get a number to totally revamp the internet, the next budget.
We have changed providers. We've upgraded to the business class as opposed to the residential class
And you've
internet.
seen a
So
difference?
there is a difference in the budget. So far, it seems to be working.
I was more even meaning, not just the provider, but the technology and the equipment we have in here to make sure that the signal is, whenever, a certain extent as you use, you lose strength. So I won't,
Check us out.
I don't have the password, so I can't.
It was pretty pitiful the last time we did
Yeah.
that. I know Allison and Tom, our consultant that we work with, have been working on it.
So you guys have seen a difference, and you're happy with that?
60 megs a second.
That's pretty good.
Ukraine.
But you're paying for 100.
There you go,
You're paying for 100 though.
probably.
Yeah, if you went to business class, you're supposed to pay 100.
That's
And that's where you lose it, because if you go to your modem, it's probably gonna tell you got 100, and then you lose
So there's
it.
going to be an increase in our technology.
Kevin, you just messed up my son's Fortnite game.
the town of Jackson.
You just don't like signals.
Okay, that's cool. All right, next meeting, December 16th, 6 PM for us.
Do we know when the town meeting is? The selectmen's meeting? Remember we've had problems in the past with when they're scheduled? I don't know if you were ever to
What are
them.
they?
Do you know what date they've scheduled theirs?
You mean for the
Annual meeting.
For the
Annual
town
meeting.
meeting?
Yeah, do you know?
No, it's a,
I can't remember what the issue was, but I remember.
There were regulations on when ours could be before the town
Right.
meeting.
Right, and then registration for voting
Right.
also goes into that. So I think we've solved that. Or we look at all those
Oh, we-
aspects.
we've solved that. Okay.
I think we had a
I just
question
wanted-
one year whether it could actually be before town meeting or after town meeting. I think maybe that's what you might be thinking about.
Okay. Understand.
Consider change Martin Luther King weekend, is that why we're changing to Tuesday? Okay. Is everybody okay with that?
I will not be here that day.
What?
Yeah, I
Well, what
want
are we
late
gonna do?
tickets, sorry. I didn't know you were changing. I can get in touch with Lori.
Okay.
If she could reschedule that for someone.
All right, thank you. Set date for school district meeting Thursday, March 5th.
make a motion for, to have the annual school district meeting Thursday, March 5th at the Whitney Community Center.
Thank you.
Second.
So that's the discussion.
All in favor?
Do they have to be on Thursdays?
Yeah, is that your night at the door?
The only thing I would say is that Kevin coordinates these with,
Yeah.
Yeah,
these meetings
everybody else.
get coordinated not only just between the school board and the selectman's office here, but they kind of get coordinated between here and all the other towns for the schools. And a lot of that also has to do with what's happening between the schools and their own towns.
Okay.
So if we're going to discuss changing that, we can't just pick a date and decide without kind of letting them do their stuff. But as far as Thursdays are go, there's a reason why it's kind of chosen for Thursdays, and it's, through the wisdom of many years and all that's been decided that Thursdays are good, nice to have those during the week for people.
That's what I was asking for. They were always on Thursdays, so I was trying to find out why there was a reason that they were always on Thursdays.
Yeah, it's for the same reason that there used to be a lot of times when we go Thursdays or Saturdays, and there's reasons why Saturdays are picked, but because society's changed, Saturdays have kind of gone by the wayside. So we're back to pretty much always Thursdays now. And like I said, there is actually thought put into that for the most part. It doesn't mean that there aren't towns and things that do it differently. They can pretty much set them up the way they want to, but they typically don't anyway.
Thank you.
And that Thursday, February 6th one, and D, will we have our February meeting? that day? That's what we normally do?
That's kind of what we normally do, but I don't know if we should, because we have too much going on, I think, with the subcommittees and all that stuff that we're trying to do.
We can figure that out in January, but that time for the budget hearing is set so that we specifically have enough time to hold another one if we have to.
Well, I know, that's why I was just asking if we weren't gonna do 2 meetings, and was that meeting set at 5? Anyway, put it the way it is, and I'll see what it looks like when it gets close.
We can change that time later on too. It's
Yeah.
just, the earlier we pick the date, the easier it is for
Yeah.
everybody to kind of
Yeah.
get all their ducks in a row. So we haven't, I don't know if we voted on the C yet.
You did not.
All right, I didn't know we had to vote on
This, well,
Do a motion through, and we just need to vote.
those. Okay.
So
Sorry.
the district meeting and the budget, not the budget hearing, we don't have to actually vote on that, but the district meeting, we actually have to vote on as a board
Okay.
to set that one specifically.
Okay, motion?
We
We already made it, we just.
Second.
We need to vote.
Third, fourth, vote?
The other ones we don't technically have to vote on. Well, our set the meeting for like December 16th. We don't technically have to vote on that one, but we do need to set the meeting time. And so it's whatever kind of format we use in voting standard, we kind of just gloss over those every time.
Right.
We probably should be voting on those, but we don't really have to, I mean, because it's set by the posting. But by law, we actually do have to vote on the school district meeting one.
Okay, that makes sense. Budget hearing, we're good with the February 6th, do we need to vote on that? We don't need to vote on that, right?
No, we're good on setting that, we don't have to technically set that in advance,
Okay.
other than just 2 weeks in advance, or 10 business days in advance. But
No, we have,
we're well inside of 10 business days, so if we actually voted on that now, that actually eased my mind.
okay, so
So
we
we make a
vote.
motion to set the
Motion.
budget hearing Thursday, February 6th, 6 p.m.
16. Second,
here.
all those in favor? Good.
What happens with those is that if you don't do them as spelled out by the law, it's usually never a problem until it is. If someone wants to challenge something and say, you know, you all voted on that school board, I mean, all voted to get a preschool in your building, but you didn't vote on setting that date for the annual district meeting, so I'm gonna challenge that. It would be iffy if that one kind of won in court, but it's nice just to remove that as an argument option for people.
I'm with you. All right, school board goal setting review. So we had our meeting last week, Tuesday, from 10 to noon. I thought it went very well, it was very productive. We actually have a little, I passed this out and sent it to everybody.
Printed that out.
Yep. So this is just to review what we did, kind of, and Jerry made a good point, but we had to start somewhere. We didn't start necessarily where we wanted to or where we would start in the future with goal setting, so we did this as a once-over for our goals to look at and kind of keep everybody in mind as we move forward. All the ideas that we had, we put on paper as far as what projects we wanted to work on, what things we wanted to work on, timing-wise, and how we felt we could make ourselves more efficient and effective in our meetings. So we're going to try and implement some of those ideas or discuss them more, but we left the meeting. I thought it was good. We're going to have another meeting in probably May when we have a new board to set goals for the coming year so that we're back in line with Gail and the school and the budget and all that stuff as well.
Because that was a question that I had on the one that said get Kevin and Gail's goals by April.
Yeah.
What I, excuse me, remembered was that we were gonna get your goals,
Right,
so we could work with them during the summer.
right. So, okay,
Get
so we'll
the
get our
goals to
goals
you.
to you.
And I thought we were gonna meet in March or April, right after the first of the board.
April is the
April's
earliest.
the earliest, so
Okay.
usually April's the hello meeting.
Right.
And you could set it sometime after April, before May, or some, before the May meeting.
But definitely before the summer, right, because you set them in July?
Right.
Got it.
Yeah, we have our admin, PLC, we do our SAU and school goals during the summer. So if I had feedback from you, I would be able to incorporate that into our goals as well.
But one of the things that we wanted to do kind of between now and then was to kind of define our process and what our roles are. And just one thing I think that we should probably look to do between now and the next board is come up with a board policy so that when we want to change things like the agenda, there's actually an official format and an official process of how we go about doing that. I mean, we have an official agenda. If we want to change it, then we change the policy, which the board can change its own board policy whenever and however it wants to. And it's just better, to me, it's a better way of doing it. So I think that one of the, as far as trying to define our process and our roles as board members, maybe one thing we should be looking to do is adopt a policy between now and April. And there's boilerplate ones that the New Hampshire School Board Association has, and it might be a good place to start, to take a look at it and see if we want to do that.
For revising the agenda? Or for policy specifically?
To me, as far as revising the agenda is concerned, I like the way that Jen I like the changing the word to action items, because to me, it's a better way to describe it. And I like, because that might be a better way of holding our committees a little bit more accountable to what we do and don't do. So I like that. I have a small beef with where the citizen comments goes.
I'm fine with them being there. Maybe we just eliminate letting everybody talk all the time.
But what I'm saying is
But I
that
don't
if
know.
the rest
I
of the
like
board
that too.
doesn't agree, then I don't care if the next agenda that we see in December looks like this.
Okay.
And I don't care whether we have citizen comments there or not. I'm advocating for them to be there.
Right.
If the rest of the board doesn't feel that way, then speak up and
I think
change
it's a
it.
good idea, because let's say that there was something down in number 8 that somebody was concerned about, and they didn't want to sit through our whole meeting. They could say, are you gonna be talking about this when you get down there? But they can't even ask that question if we take that off.
Right.
I like them in both places. I guess I would like to hold them to both places.
Yeah,
More
we've
often
got a
than
way
not.
of letting people talk whenever they want. And really, they
Correct.
can only talk if you point at them.
No, and the truth is, it's our meeting, they're here to observe,
Yeah.
unless we give them the floor.
And I
So
do like
we
the
can
community
manage-
involvement, don't get me
Yeah.
wrong, so it's gonna be hard.
But sometimes it could
If you can
be
do it,
people,
Jen.
hey, Susie, I see your Christmas, thank you, but if you could hold off until we get the citizens' comments, that would be great. You know,
So,
So just a question.
so how do we do this? What are we doing?
Well, we have all these actions we want to take. Are we just, is this on pause then until our April meeting where we should meet again? Or, because
Confirmed.
it sounds like,
No, these were, as far as when we were in that meeting last week, these were supposedly goals that we could work on until our April meeting.
okay.
It's kind of, maybe we can't finish them all, but they're goals that we are all actively looking to work on, so that we.
Well,
move
The issue
ahead.
is that, for example, keeping the meetings to an hour, we already have disagreement about that. So you know me, I'm like, give me targets and we'll do it. I just feel like there's some confusion on our board.
I like trying to keep it to an hour. If it goes over an hour, obviously.
I thought we were gonna have like
An
a
hour.
second meeting to actually establish what our real goals were, that was like a
We could do that.
brainstorming thing.
It's kind of
We
what I
could do
thought,
that.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's do that. So let's set up another meeting.
December 24th?
Perfect.
Yeah.
I'll bring in my mom. Yeah. Yes, can we do that?
You can do whatever you want. One recommendation that I would have for you folks here, you have committees in place. So if you could designate where this work will be done, and so for example, recruit, recognize, and develop the most effective personnel. A lot of that, I would assume, would go through the personnel committee, and if you need to change policy. So when you get to that point to determine, okay, is this a personnel committee? Is this a policy committee? Is it a facility committee? Is it a budget committee piece? I think that will help streamline so that, and if you need to adopt a ad hoc committee for a special purpose, a la the high school tuition, then you can establish that at the board level. I think then people are doing formalized work outside the meeting that comes to you folks, and that would just be a recommendation that I have.
And some of this was kind of generalized and some was more specific.
Right.
And so we could probably break down, I mean, there are several that we could just knock out right away.
Those
And
are-
then-
yeah,
The bigger ones,
right. That was
there
actually
were
Gail.
some committees who are already doing them. I mean, personnel, we just had a meeting about looking at salaries and making sure we're competitive. And so,
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to set up a second meeting.
great.
Maybe we'll keep it to an hour and a half, what we could all do. Does anybody want to propose a date or time? What do you want me to throw it out
January
there?
1st.
What?
Could we do it after January 1st?
Oh, we miss a meeting.
This meeting? All right, we'll make it work.
It may be
You're bringing
pushed
the
to
holiday
that.
treats, Jen?
It may be
Maybe we
pushed
can
to
do it at
that.
6 in the morning or something.
Okay. I'm up.
I am too.
Okay.
I'm not so much.
And I have to see, if I can get back in.
Well, to keep the ball rolling on that.
Right, I want to keep.
You
it
have
on.
the action item on there, Jerry and I will meet with Jim.
Okay.
In June.
Yeah.
Yes.
But at the same time, as part of that goal, I would love to hear from Gail to say, okay, put the preschool aside for now. If we gave you those 2 rooms for next year, how would they be used? Like, I guess that means a lot to me when is the cost.
My first question is, are they going to be allowable by the school approval by the fire person?
Yeah, well, let's say that they were. Let's say, how would you envision it being used? If you were allowed to send kids up there right now, how would you envision the upstairs being used? You can't really say that on the downstairs because there really isn't a downstairs. But on the upstairs, if it was totally approved and we did everything we needed to do, and we're not talking about preschool right now, what would the use of that upstairs, what would that look like?
Why don't you give her 24 hours to get back?
Well,
Yeah.
I'm not saying 24 hours, I just mean that, like, is it,
Right.
an hour a day for our, maybe that's where the guidance or the Title I person goes, I don't know, like, I would
Okay.
like to be that to be part of the discussion. Like, I could go build a huge garage, 6-car garage in my house, but I only got 2 cars. I could have just built a 2-car garage.
Is everybody available the 13th of December or the 18th, Friday, the 13th?
We have a consultant at school that day.
Oh, nice, okay. How about either Tuesday, the 17th, Wednesday, the 18th?
I think you should send an email out on that one, only because we don't have Kate here.
I know, I'm just
We
trying
can
to
all
get
say
some
yes.
ideas.
I can't do the 17th, but I could do the 18th.
And I guess what's the purpose of this one?
This is the goal.
This was a good idea, to get together again and set the goals, like to actually put the goals kind of a little bit, like formulating
assign
them
them
and
and-
assigning them and.
I mean, here's the reality. We have a number of them that they're just administrative tasks. Packet delivery 1 week before meeting, keep meetings to an hour, review board member tasks and commitments at each meeting. If we all agree that we can give that to Jen, then we can do that. But if we can't, then we should meet again to say, okay, do we need the policy committee to put together a policy on changing the agenda and what our practices and protocols are? Or are we comfortable just saying, set the agenda?
Well, I think, one thing we have missing is we need to officially vote on what our goals are. Just because my goal is keep the meeting to an hour doesn't mean that that's everybody's goals.
That's true.
And just as an example of that, so
Yeah.
that came about because Keith came out of the group he was in and said, this was my goal, and nobody else agreed with me.
Yeah, nobody else agree with me.
And I want to set these up.
That was what's there.
No, I agree with them. I
We
agree
could
with
certainly
them.
set a policy that would meet
I would
those
like to
things.
try, I